Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to one of the highlights, one of the bits I've been particularly looking forward to, which is a panel discussion on the M2M customer experience. Please join me in welcoming our several speakers who are Richard Castle of Jasper, Jürgen Hase of Deutsche Telekom, and Dr. Marcus Oliver Menzel of Axeda, the General Manager of EMEA at Axeda. Please give them a warm welcome as we discuss the M2M customer experience. Tell you what. This is completely unprompted, so I'm going to put you right on the spot now. What I wanted to do was to give you the opportunity, each of you, to have a few minutes to describe what your take is on what you've been hearing today and your expectations of improving the customer experience. And then perhaps we can come to one or two specific questions about what we anticipate we might do for an improving market. Can I ask you to start? Take us through what your thoughts are at Axeda, if you would, about how to deal with customer experience and what the challenges are.
Sure. So many of you might know Axeda. Other read on the paper on the invitation that there should be a colleague of mine coming from ThingWorx. We are right now a part of the PTC company, so therefore please excuse if there are several names by several brands, but ThingWorx and Axeda are both brands now since 2014 from PTC. And we from Axeda, where I originally came from, were a classical M2M IoT supplier vendor since 14 years, so we are quite experienced in this kind of market. And saying that, usually the user experience comes from a typical pain point, whether it's from the technical perspective or from a customer interaction perspective. For the technical perspective, it's for the administrators when it comes to scalability and performance issues that come up with usually our main competitor coming from the internal development of an IoT solution. So usually someone from a company, from a customer of us, approaches us and says, oh, well, we have an IoT solution already in place, it's homegrown, but we have some certain issues regarding performance and scalability, so we might look at an out-of-the-box solution that's been in place as a cloud vendor. So from that point of perspective, we have this kind of user experience when it comes to the typical pain point coming from the IT department. From the customer or end user perspective, so I'm talking about now the people that are working, for example, with our application or our platform, the IoT platform from Axeda, it's usually the kind of approach, what does it make it more handsome, more nicely, more easy to use, more socialized view. So the general experience of day-to-day working with the internet has to become familiar also for the IoT platform as well. So given that as a typical phrase, it's always coming up with a nicely dashboard, for example, easy to use like drag and drop, nicely colored mashups for the management perspectives for an IoT platform. These are usually the kind of approaches or needs that a customer or a prospect from our perspective has nowadays, whether it's from the usability or from the technical point of view, that might come up as an essential part of, if they want to choose Axeda or another vendor, for example, if it comes to that point. Is it usable, and how fast can we adopt our typical usage of the internet nowadays into that business application?
Thank you. Jürgen, it's a a point that was made this morning by your colleague from Deutsche Telekom, the importance of the customer experience, and rightly made. What's the culture within Deutsche Telekom that makes this so important? What is it that you're doing within the company that makes this such a key feature of what you're offering?
Yeah, I fully agree to the statement Alexander Lautz makes this morning. It's really, I believe it's a journey. We start a new form of interaction with our customer, really to start a journey. You can see it with the bicycle, this example, it's a full new form. It's not to develop something in our closed shops, more or less, and then to sell it. It's more in interaction with our partner, and then really to sell things to the market, build up experience, and it's more again and again a form of a loop to sell things. I believe that's one of the most important things, and not to overrule them. Normally, you know, if you are in touch with customer, they are producing machines, any type of machines, and it's not, normally we from our technology side, we are coming with deep innovation, technical people. We know exactly how it's running on the deep technical side. One aspect is, and I believe here we have done an excellent job inside Deutsche Telekom, is really to have more a look on what is the business behind, how we can change the business model of the customer, help them to be better, to be faster, to be in any form faster than their competitors or whatever. All these things is more important than the technology side. We know exactly what our partners are doing, what we are doing, how we can combine it. It's a strong partnership program Alexander has shown this morning. I believe this is our part. But to simplify it to the customer, that's more important. I believe you can show it on the same way. I like the example with a smartphone in any form. Nobody's knowing exactly what is the processor inside. That's not interesting, how to use it and how to use it in your field, in your activities. I believe this is the experience we have made, and we will make more with our customer.
We're talking here to three different kinds of companies. Richard, Jasper is growing fast. Tell us a little bit about any particular pressures or opportunities that gives you to concentrate on how to improve customer experience for your customers and your customers' customers.
Well, Jasper, we're a pioneer in the Internet of Things, cloud-based services, and we work with our mobile network partners around the world to deliver the service platforms that we create. One of the things that's been very important to us since our foundation 10 years ago is what does it look like for the end user, the end customer? And actually that has a different perspective along the value chain as you look at how this technology is used. So when we talk to our mobile service providers, we ask them what helps them improve their business dynamic, their service capability. When we talk to our end users, we try to understand what is it they're ultimately trying to achieve. We've talked to many enterprises, we've talked to many mobile network operators, and as you saw earlier on, we had the connected car, the connected bike, the connected cow. We haven't spoken to the cow, but she's very happy with the new service that she can use. But essentially, it's gaining the feedback from the ultimate end user of this. The challenges that we're facing in the organization is one of explosive growth in the industry. I think it's becoming more accessible, the way that the technologies are delivered and the business economics behind that are more achievable as well. So what that is pressurizing us as an organization is how do we create the same type of experience as we've been used to providing, which has been pretty well received in our market, but how do we continue to do that when the rate of change is phenomenal? And this is really an environment where we're seeing significant growth on a sort of 12-month basis or so. So our challenge is one of ensuring consistency, brand, not losing sight of what the ultimate end user of our technology is going to experience and how we can enable that business to continue to grow as we have done over the years or so.
I'm essentially a positive person, and I like to concentrate on the positives, but how are we going to really tackle this subject unless we look at the downside. So what is it that we as an industry are getting wrong? Or what indeed are our customers getting wrong? What are the common problems that damage M2M customers' experience and make them churn to another provider? Can I start with you, Richard?
Thank you. We've seen the dependency upon the service and the platform and the user experience increase significantly, both from a contractual perspective when we negotiate with our mobile operating partners in terms of some of the SLA and penalties that are being imposed, through to the dependency and the importance of that service to the end user. As an example, I came over this morning. I use an incredibly good taxi service over in the UK who very kindly send me text messages and tell me the progress of my taxi and when it's going to collect me and when I should leave my front door. Unfortunately, the mobile network crashed this morning, so I had none of those. So 10 minutes after I was due to be collected and 50 minutes before I was due to get on the plane, there was a slight hint of panic. So as a user, my user experience was one of panic and trying to think of different options to get here to join you lovely people today. So what we're finding is the pressure being put upon the infrastructure that essentially has been built over the years is causing us some concern. It's the consistency of a service and an experience, but also just some of the raw basics of KPIs, monitoring and places like that. So we're finding it interesting. We're seeing massive growth, fantastic opportunity, but let's not lose sight of some of the raw basics, which is to just ensure the service works in a reliable way.
So Jürgen, it's according to Richard, it's partly the KPIs, it's partly pressure on the networks. What are the things that you look out for that will alert you to problems in customer experience?
Lesson learned, that's my understanding. One part is really, I tried to explain in my first answer, is really do not overrule the customer. It's really, really important. Normally, if you have a customer who's producing machines, you can implement all. You can implement track and trace, you can implement predictive maintenance, you can whatever you want, all these 10 points. And start first, let's start with big data analytics and the rest will come. Then you will overrule the customer. It's too fast. It's really, yes, that could be step 3 in 1 or 2 years, but now start with the logistic part, start with this one, build up really field test as soon as possible, get and look and feel for the customer side that they can see how it's running, build up trust. That's more important than to start as soon as possible a mass rollout. That's one lesson learned. Another one is what are the business models behind? I want to come back to the business models. At the end, all want to earn money, that's clear, and inform, for example, the working council. If we talk about track and trace cars or whatever, service people inform the working council. That's really important. If not, then you have implemented, the customer is starting to track and trace the service organization and somebody is telling you, no, that's not allowed. You have to inform them, all these things. As open as possible, the interaction with the customer, that's really key. And also to share information with other segments. If you can see something is happening in the copy machine industry, you can share it more or less as a best practice example in some other areas, full independent, but the big picture is the same. Share it as soon as possible. I believe this, then it's helpful, and then you are pushing things really in a good way.
I'd like to come back to the element of sharing, but in a slightly different context in a moment. Marcus, is there anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, as a classical software vendor, we usually are faced with the problem at a customer side that it's been recognized not as a application that might help the company growth for certain new business units, rather than they just bought another tool for the IT department. So therefore, we often get into this kind of situation where we are stuck inside. For example, the main initial project always comes from the service part. So we are stuck inside the service part, and then usually the customer does not get the right internal attention to say there is business transformation coming up with machine data right now, maybe also for other departments, maybe for sales, marketing, R&D, logistics, whatever. So at that point, we often get face-to-face to the customer and saying, we need you to support to get the word spread inside of the company that it's helpful with machine data for other business units as well. So it's not just a service tool, it's more than that. It's the information you get from your devices, from your assets out in the field that might help you grow your business. And with that point, that's often an issue we come up even after the sale. After we sell the application or the platform, we should say, okay, you can do whatever you want to, go for it. And, but we want to support them in saying, there's more to that than just a service tool.
Thank you. We've talked there about sharing data. Jürgen, how about sharing the customer? I mean, it's not that strange a concept. And I was at a conference only last week where IBM and other vendors were urging network operators to share the customer. Is the idea of owning the customer an outdated concept? And if it isn't, who should own the customer?
Do not share customer data. I believe key for all of us is lesson learned. Really, you can see what was happening in the UK the last years. Privacy and security is key, full stop. That's absolute. It's not allowed to share anything in any form. What you can share is best practice. To come more not to the big data story, to the analytic, it's more the best practice story about the application itself. No? It could be in the agriculture in application. You can use more or less 90% of the same technology for some total different segment. This one you have to share, and then you can bring the people together. They like it. Then please tell me, and like this morning, is the best you can do is bring your customer on stage and let them explain what is good and what's not so good. It's a lesson learned. I believe it was really good to see, especially this morning, how it's running and how we all can learn and go forward. This is the form how to share things. And it's not the big data. I know everybody's talking about let's share the data and monetize the data. I believe today we are talking more about segments, analyze the data in the segment from the machines itself, so make it to optimize the process itself. And in long terms, we talk about smart cities and other things, and that's the next way in the next years. But I believe here we all will be in the loop and learn again and again how to manage it. At the end, it has to be allowed from the customer side. If you try to share information which is not allowed from customer side, you will do it once and never again, then you will be out. I believe key is trust. Trust, and again, trust. And I believe that's the reason why I believe that big companies have big opportunities. There could be many partners behind, but you have somebody in front who's telling you where the customer believes in is a trustful part. I believe that's one of the key drivers for the future, especially in the B2B sector.
Understood. Richard, you talk to an awful lot of operators. You must have an opinion on this. I mean, are we talking about what the Americans call one throat to choke?
So I think sharing of the experience is essential, and forums like this are great for doing that. Sharing liability and sharing pain is not normally what the customer wants. They want that single liability, they want the single response, the single throat to choke. So, and I think they get a better engagement and trust by just having a consistent standard interface rather than a multiple threaded interface, which may be very good in a well-developed, mature, highly technical environment, but I still think we're in early phases. There's a lot more people that don't really get what we're trying to achieve with the term of Internet of Things, M2M, than there are that do understand it. And I think we've seen some excellent examples today of people that really get it. So from our perspective, I think we work with our mobile operator partners in a way that we fully respect that the ultimate relationship and ownership and the liability is with those guys. And we're happy to share that, but not to stand in front of them to do that. So as an end user myself, I would just want something that's simplistic. We want user experience. We want something that's nice and consistent. I don't want to have to call 5 different numbers to complain about a service that's not being delivered to me. I'd prefer to call one number and to let those guys deal with that particular challenge or so.
I do agree with you about not having quite hit that tipping point yet, where we're seeing more people who actually understand what the IoT is than don't. I always tend to apply the pub test, which is randomly, occasionally throw the question at friends you meet in the pub and see how many people actually understand what on earth you mean by the Internet of Things, and hope that they don't all come back with the same description of the connected fridge.
And you know, as a vendor, as a service provider, we assume too early in the process. And the Internet of Things, the amount of times people have asked me, what does IoT stand for on your slide deck? Which fortunately we've corrected now, but it just tells you that we're, technologists, we're visionaries, we're moving forward, and perhaps we need to wait a little bit for the mainstream to catch up with us or so.
There's been a bit of a shift going on, I've noticed today, with an awful lot of people talking about things other than the Internet of Things, the Internet of everything, the Internet of experience, the Internet of customers. Marcus, how is it that we can set about managing and measuring the customer experience better?
Well, if they don't churn. So to say, no, usually we as a typical provider for this kind of service are doing the kind of reviews always to get the feedback out of the field from our customers saying, what can we do better? What is the use case? What could be best practices, for example? So from that point of view, I would say just keep your eyes open and your ears near to the customer base, because if you don't follow their needs, they don't see the need in getting a supplied vendor for an IoT platform.
Mm. Jürgen, anything to add to that? How we manage and measure?
I believe it's more than only the customer. It's the new form of selling IoT things. It's more a form of selling, a form of a triangle. It's one side the customer, then it's a partner, and then it's a company like us. There are more, 3 or 4 or 5 in this rule. And at the end, no churn rate. I fully agree at the end of the day. And if you have started in one segment, then when the people like it, then to sell it more. And it's not a one-stop shop in a form that you sell it one and you never will see him again. Normally, you build up a relationship for many years. It's totally different than to sell to sell smartphones with a tariff. You sell it once and you will come back all 2 years for the frame contract or something like this. If you talk about machine to machine, you are more or less in a weekly interaction with your customer for many years, how to implement here, what you can do here, there, and so on and so on. And it's a full new experience on both sides.
Richard, we all joke about churn, being the final definition of whether or not the customer experience has been a good one. But clearly, it's a little late in the day if the customer has churned. So what is it that you're looking for to manage and measure?
We've realized over the last few years that it's very important to have key metrics and to act upon those metrics. We were in the very early days intent on delivering a service capability that was new, innovative, and addressed a lot of business challenges. And then we realized that the important piece is actually, once you've delivered that, that's one phase of a very long life cycle. As Jürgen said, this is a multi-year relationship you're having with very sophisticated customers who are dependent upon your service capability. So we've started to look at a number of different factors, all the way from the end device through to, we're tightly integrated to our network partners, so there's a very tight bond and relationship that we have, and it's very important that we understand their capability, they understand our capability, so we have quite a high degree of inward and outward looking focus, and trying to get as much feedback as we can. So forums like this are very important, empirical data that you can pull from devices and elements, and just the general metric of how is your churn rate. Now, bearing in mind, as we talked earlier on, we don't own the customer, that's not our intent, we're there to work with our operator partners. So you can certainly bet that they have very sophisticated ways of ensuring that we're compliant with what we've signed up for.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not very often that you get such an elevated panel And certainly not very often that you get an elevated panel like this available for you talking about customer experience. So if there is anybody who's got a question, either now or later, I'd love to come to it. There's a very good chance to put that to the audience, from the audience to our panel. And please do so. Just raise your hand if you've got anything. We can always come back to it later, though. Fine. M2M service providers and solution vendors are well known for talking about technological advantage. This is one of my first experiences of seeing an M2M debate talking about customer experience. I've sat in on many panels, and I haven't seen this happen before, and I applaud the M2M Alliance for bringing this forward as a discussion point. There seems to be less talk about this within the industry historically. Why do you think that is, Marcus?
Well, usually our claim is when we start a conversation with the prospect, we take the complexity of getting your machine data into your company or your business. So therefore, the technology approach nowadays is not an issue anymore. So usually we get round about an hour and then we are technology fixed. And then we say, now we come to the real business, what's interesting for you, because now you can take this data and take care of your business, which are you most experts in. So therefore, from this point of view, I think the user experience starts when they think about the possibilities that machine data give them for their certain business processes, the transformation that has to be done. This is quite essential inside of a company who's now using machine data. And the outcome, of course, at the end of the day, everybody wants to make money. So therefore, they have to think about what's the use of this data. We take care of the technology, how to get this and to bring it into your company or your business. And you have to take care about, so now we have the data available, let's do some experiences on this, what might be the outcome of this, and then we create the business case to gain more revenue. That's usually the claim.
Jürgen, why is it that this hasn't been such a major focus? Because, I mean, it's been a regular focus within the wider world of telecoms, but it hasn't really been a big focus within M2M and IoT until, well, not today perhaps, but certainly in the last year or so.
Yeah, but at the end, if you look to the IoT market, I believe for us, it's a mix of things. If you have a look to Deutsche Telekom, it's a mix of things we are doing into systems, big projects, individual customized project, and the full mass market of the consumer telephony and mobile broadband part. The M2M part is something between, but it's especially in the small and medium enterprise market, these customers are really fast. That's the next generation of the Industry 4.0. It was a good example. You can see it will change the world. Our daily activities, our life, on the consumer life, our B2B life. And you need somebody between who can trustful manage all these things. And this is our rule. And that's the reason why machine-to-machine IoT is one of the core activities of Deutsche Telekom in this part, because you need somebody who is managing it and who is stable and trustful for a long, long time, because you cannot only realize the big M2M projects with a garage company of 5 people in the long term. There's a high risk behind, especially because M2M means, on the business side, it has to run. If not, you will lose money, full stop. This is also really important, and that's the reason why you need somebody who can deliver quality and service. And the new one for us also is, it's absolute global. There's not a country typical application. Normally is minimum continental wise, and you can see it in the automotive industry as best example. You have to sell it worldwide, and this one that's the reason why we believe that a company like Deutsche Telekom, it's absolutely the right partner in this case to manage all of this.
Richard, Marcus and Jürgen have both made a really important point regarding the transformation and the responsibility. Transformation is something that is happening so much within companies that you guys are dealing with. I often think of the example of the likes of Garmin, who have gone from supplying us all with a unit to now supplying us with a service, an ongoing service. And they know that I'm no longer interested in whether or not the Garmin switches on quickly. It could be anybody. I just plucked Garmin from the air, but whether the Garmin switches on quickly and gives me the satellite acquisition, I'm interested in the long-term service and whether or not they know where Jeremy is and what it is that I'm looking for. This is the case now for so many different companies that your customers are dealing with. Is that transformation as important to customer experience?
So I think there's a few things here. The customer experience has become more important and more on the critical path because of the capability of technology and services over the last few years, the wonderful market hype that we participate in ourselves, and then the realization of the possibilities as you get more investment into these markets or so. So we're starting to see that customers are very keen on the dependency of that service when they embrace it and when they invest. We're starting to see that once they invest, they realize the possibilities, so they're looking to simplify processes, simplify business, in fact, bring out new business models as well. And as a result of that, that then takes you to yet another step where it has quite a transformational effect. So from our perspective, we've always taken the view that we build a service capability for the end user, but now we're starting to see that the end user is going at such a pace to change the way they do things, to become so dependent on what is typically a fairly connected platform, that we're looking at how do we take that user experience, how do we plug that into other elements and to bring into ecosystem partners which will enable greater value to be derived from that service or so going forward. So I think it's quite an impact that we're seeing. It's having an interesting way of driving us and creating additional capability, and it's driving the industry to a point where to talk to the single throat to choke point, there has to be an ecosystem collaboration discussion going on anyway, because just the sheer pace of this industry is phenomenal, and I'm not sure that any one individual can keep up with that pace.
Journalists are often accused of oversimplifying situations, and I'm no exception to that, so let me prove it. I've tried to jot down an equation. Tell me if any of this makes sense or if there are missing parts of the equation. Network optimization plus self-service plus predictive analytics equals better customer experience. What's missing from that? What shouldn't be there?
Can you repeat?
Yes. Network optimization plus self-service plus predictive analytics equals better customer experience. What am I missing?
For me, it's the security part overall.
Security.
That's mission critical. That's one of the key points.
Change of business processes is one essential.
Yes. Could you expand a little bit on that so that we understand?
Well, for example, several customers of our now have this kind of initiative as a reaction from their market, for example, that they say, well, now with these connected devices, we might get to the point that we not sell anymore the devices, we sell the services and give away the device for free. So we charge the customer not for buying an asset, rather than buying the outcome from an asset, for example. Usually one of our customers, GE, in power and oil, often refers to, we don't sell the turbine, we sell the thrust. That's the outcome. So there is a change of thinking with this new data input that might change also the business model for each of those customers to his end customers.
Jürgen, you're about to say something.
I believe at the end you can compare from the consumer in the same way from the business side. I believe in the future we are living in a shared world. People are sharing whatever they want. They're sharing their cars, their bikes, Normally, we are under us in the small world. Sometimes they are sharing their friends, I believe, I don't know. We are sharing all. That means, and then you have to manage this shared world. And for this one, the M2M IoT market is shifting from CapEx to OpEx. More the world is shifting into an OpEx world. That means pay, if you want to use a car, you have to pay a car. There's no front invest, not 20,000 euro front invest to buy a car. If you need a car, you will get a car. You will pay, I don't know, €1 per kilometer or whatever. So I believe this one is coming up, and we have to follow this mega trend in this case. And it's depending on us. We are shifting more from a CapEx to an OpEx model, and our B customer in the same way to the end customer. This one is coming up more from CapEx to OpEx in a shared world. Yeah.
Richard, what would you add to that before we close?
If we're talking in mathematical metaphors, I'd have that formula divided by customer.
Divided by customer.
So by that, I think each of those elements is very important to get what the customer's feedback is on that. So it's a critical path to any successful service or product, I think.
I like that. Well, I never was any good at maths, so I always did need the help, whatever help was available. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, for your considered views, and for your candor. Please give a big round of applause to our panel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my turn to say a few words, which I'll do from the lectern. So, gentlemen, if you'd like to make your way back, thank you so much for your time.